Zdravo. Dobrodošli v posebnem Pesinem soku, podcastu Rdeče pese. Z vami sem njenem in danes gostim Francesco Albanese, posebno poročevalko Združenih narodov za stanje človekovih pravic na okupiranih palestinskih ozemljih. 3. julija je Francesca Albanese v Združenih narodih predstavila najnovejše poročilo, ki ima naslov Od gospodarstva okupacije do gospodarstva genocida in ki se osredotoča na odgovornost javnih in zasebnih institucij, od recimo podjetij do univerze, pri izraelskih zločinih v Palestini in na okupiranih palestinskih ozemljih. V uvodu je denimo najprej predstavljena kratka zgodovina gospodarstva tega prostora, ki stoji za vzpostavitvijo apartheida in genocida. Evropska in tuja podjetja so že v 20. stoletju spodbujala in omogočala proces razseljevanja in nadomeščanja arabskega prebivalstva na tem prostoru. Izrael je to politiko še dodatno pospešil po letu 1976 in ravno takrat so se te tuje korporacije še bolj vključile in z nakupi orožja, s prodajo orožja, s prodajo strojev in izvozom strojev za uničevanje palestinskih šol, bolnišnic, prostorov za druženje in druge javne infrastrukture, pravzaprav poskrbele in prispevale k temu, da je danes celotna Palestina, še posebej pa Gaza, povsem uničena. Francesca Albanese nam bo danes predstavila ključna področja, ki predstavljajo temelje izraelske kolonialne politike in temelje apartheida v Palestini. To so recimo vojaška industrija, tehnološka podjetja, težka mehanizacija, gradbeništvo, pa tudi univerze. Francesca, welcome to Slovenia.
Thank you.
Welcome to our Rdeče pese podcast. So, for the beginning, what is the main goal of this report?
First of all, for those who do not know what is a special rapporteur and a special rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territory in particular, I am, like 40 other people appointed by the Human Rights Council as UN independent experts, mandated to investigate, document and report violations of international law, in my case, taking place in the occupied Palestinian territory. And where Israel is the occupying power. Therefore, it's primarily actually looking at the resolution creating my mandate exclusively at looking at Israel's violations of international law. So in this context, in the last 22 months, I have investigated, since the beginning of my mandate, 3 years ago, I investigated the violations of the right of self-determination, arrest and detention practices, the treatment of children. And after October 2023, I produced two reports looking at the acts of genocides and how acts of genocides are reflective of a colonial erasure project. Now, my last report is the 6th I write and looks at how the corporate sector machinery, including arms manufacturers, tech companies, construction companies, extractive companies, banks, pension funds, goods and service and producers and suppliers, as well as charities and universities, have interplayed to enable what in the report I call an economy of occupation that Israel has set up and profited from, together with these companies, to displace and replace the Palestinians, which in recent months has transformed into an economy of genocide. And the profits that these sectors have made out of this economy are shocking.
Yeah, and let's begin with tech companies. You revealed that big tech companies are also involved in this system. So why is, for example, AI surveillance with the help of biometrics and data collection a key component of Israel's apartheid? And could you name some of these tech companies that are close that work closely with Israel?
Absolutely. No, first of all, let me say that since I issued the call for submission, I've received 200 submissions by civil society, lawyers, state institutions, investigative reporters, and others who have allowed me to map 1,000 entities implicated. And again, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg, implicated in what I call an economy of occupation. Because for 57 years, Israel has set up a system that wouldn't have been possible without the private interest being either the enablers or the drivers sometimes of Israel's project. And it has included Israeli companies and little by little and incrementally more and more multinational or foreign corporations. And in this design, tech companies have been strategic to Israel in its what I call in the first part of its project, the displacement part, because Israel has used force and so weaponry and other civilian machinery to displace the Palestinians, to uproot them, to destroy their villages, to secure the areas acquired over which control had been acquired by force. But then Palestinians have been segregated and surveyed. So CCTV cameras, collection of biodata, and spying the Palestinians has been strategic in maintaining, in preserving control over them. And this is something that is not even my own finding, because years ago, Amnesty International, together with others, because there have been Palestinian organizations like AMLE and others, Access, for example, who have exposed the use of technology in helping the repression of the Palestinian. However, Israel has used technology to maintain the segregation and the repression. Now, the data that Israel has acquired and the surveillance system that has built over the occupied Palestinian territory, including in Gaza, has proven strategic to map the Palestinians and crack down on them since October 7. However, tech companies, and I've investigated a number of them, from Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Palantir, have enhanced access to cloud, because in the beginning, after October 7, Israel needed access to Palestinian data that would allow to develop its target. This is how this military operation has been conceived. And these companies released the private data to allow Israel to inform the system that would have turned its army into a killing machine and into an indiscriminate killing machine. And there have been companies like, again, these ones have not only helped Palestinians, but have helped sophisticate the weaponry that has been used, like the technology, the quadcopters, for example, or the unmanned technologies that has made Israel's weaponry more lethal, with the least involvement possible of Israeli soldiers, so as to create a disconnect between the crime, the act of killing or maiming or destruction of hospitals and others, and the person responsible for that conduct.
Yes, and that is a constant practice of Israel, of course. Even before genocide, for example, the construction multinationals were also a big part of building new Israel on occupied Palestinian territories. In your report, you identify 371 colonies or illegal settlements that have been built in these Palestinian territories. And the funding for these settlements has doubled from 2024, right? So, for example, we see pictures of Donald Trump posting pictures of New Gaza, how it would look like a new resort for tourists or for rich people there, right? And we watch this with horror, but this has been a standard practice in Palestine for decades now. And what role do these companies such as Caterpillar, Hyundai, Volvo play in this apartheid?
Companies like Caterpillar, Hyundai, and the Korean Hyundai and Volvo have sold the machinery to Israeli companies. For example, Volvo operates to a licensee that then operates in the occupied Palestinian territory. So they have provided machinery that is dual use. It's used by the army, for example, to uproot trees, to demolish homes when Israel wants to clear an area, for example, or takes control over a given territory. It clears the area.
Yes.
And then this becomes land for settlement expansion. It always starts with a military basis or an outpost, and then it grows into a settlement. This is how Israel has occupied such a large area of the West Bank and East Jerusalem. And these companies have always, these tools, let's say civilian business machinery has also been used to build the colonies, to build the roads and infrastructure. For example, Volvo provides the buses that have been used to connect the settlements and to connect the settlements to Israel. I mean, there is no distinction between Israel and the colonies. This is the thing we in Europe need to stop living in this fiction that there is a good Israel within the Green Line and bad Israel in the colonies. The colonies are a state endeavor. The crimes that Israel commits are attributable to the states, especially now that is accused of committing crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes, and Israel maintains an apartheid regime. So what else? It's Israel which needs to face consequences. Now, this machinery has also been used in Gaza to level the ground. I mean, there are areas where excavators and bulldozers have cleared what remained of the rubbles created, or the wrecks of buildings that remained after heavy bombardment. So this machinery have grinded, have been completing the pulverization, have turned what remained of Palestinian homes into rubble, into dust. Yes. And this is why for you and I in Europe, in still safe Europe, Volvo or Hyundai can be associated to motorbikes, motorcycles, or safe cars for the families. For their logo, for Palestinian children will carry the memories of those that machinery that has crushed their homes and sometimes the bodies of their family members. This is what these companies have been doing. And it's interesting because companies saying, well, but it's not our fault. We just sell this to Israel. Well, but Israel, you don't do business as usual with a state which has been accused, and it has been accused of violating Palestinian rights and repressing Palestinians, imposing apartheid, demolishing homes. I mean, these companies knew. They've been put on notice had they observed due diligence ahead. Decades ago or even years ago, we wouldn't probably find such a catastrophic situation before our eyes. And so today they have to be held accountable.
Of course, because we're not even speaking about moral accountability anymore, but this is this should be their duty to stop collaborating with Israel.
It's their responsibility. And because they have not done it, it's a legal responsibility. I mean, the guiding principles on human rights, on business and human rights that companies take so lightheartedly. Excuse me, no, this is the minimum bearable that you need to respect. And these principles are very clear. In a situation like this, cooperating or implicating yourself in a business with a state that commits crimes makes you by default directly linked to the human rights impact that you should avoid, because there is no leverage that the business can make. In that case, it needs to pull out. And if it doesn't, it risks to contribute to and even to cause violations. Here we are talking of crimes. So there is also the possibility to hold the CEOs accountable, I mean, before criminal courts.
For sure, yeah. Let's go on to Palestinians and their connection to the land, and especially land through agriculture. Israel used kibbutz and agricultural outposts to seize Palestinian land. And you mentioned companies such as Tnuva that help themselves by supplying products from these colonies. In many of the countries where we get these products, they do not even distinguish between products from Israel or products from its colonies. And even in the European Union, where labeling is required, these goods are still allowed on the market, and the responsibility is then usually placed on uninformed consumers, right? So who is the most responsible here?
The first responsible is member state, is each member state. But you see, this is where I think that we have all... sometimes I wonder if we are affected by stupidity or we simply perform stupidity. Because in the case of apartheid South Africa, it's not that the goods produced by South Africa were boycotted whether or not they were produced in the Bantustan. They were boycotted because South Africa imposed an apartheid regime, right? So why do we continue to insist that it's settlement product? It's Israeli products. We should be banned from our market. And it's not... it was wrong before putting the responsibility on the consumers, although the movement that supports Palestinian rights called on consumers, given the lack of action, the lack of responsible moral and legal action from our governments, call consumers to be vigilant. But again, today it's in the face of the full destruction of Gaza and the advancing ethnic cleansing of both Gaza and the rest of the occupied Palestinian territory, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the heavy dehumanization of the Palestinians, the act of racism that are enacted against the Palestinians, including in our part of the world, in the so-called liberal democracies. It's time to really draw a firm and thick red line between what is legal and what is not. And now it's the time to impose sanctions and not to allow Israeli products in our markets, in our states, unless and until Israel ends the genocide, the forever occupation of Palestinian life and the apartheid.
Yes. And we are now in the holiday season, and many of us book our holiday destinations through Booking or Airbnb. Why are these two platforms controversial in the context of Israel?
They are very, very problematic. Like any business or corporation or any entity engaging in the occupied Palestinian territory other than to the benefit of the Palestinians, because these companies, Airbnb and Booking.com, and by the way, there are other European online tourism platforms who do the same and even hide it, like Israeli goods coming from the colonies are repackaged so as to deceive the consumer. So do these companies that try to hide. It's becoming more and more difficult to find their advertisement of properties in settlements. these companies normalize the occupation by a click. Because, they advertise properties held by Israelis on stolen land. And they advertise it as peaceful, nice, sweet neighborhood with view on the desert. This is stolen land. And if you, in certain jurisdictions, profiting from this kind of activities, which are criminal, implies money laundering. So again, I think that this is where consumers, while legal action has started against these companies, it's very important that consumers ask themselves, can I make this sacrifice for 3 months, to signal the business, the companies that I think that is doing something profoundly wrong? Can I cancel my account? Can I avoid using this platform, telling them that I'm not fine with them normalizing and the occupation, the perpetual occupation and the violation of right of self-determination of the Palestinian people by a click? And these will help shift the risk, the financial risk assessment that the company undertakes. Because let me say, a few years ago, Airbnb tried to pull out under consumers' pressure from the occupied Palestinian territory. And they were threatened with legal action by the pro-apartheid pressure groups that are everywhere. Well, we need to put more pressure than the pressure groups. And the company needs to face the risk of losing clients and users all over the world because of this. But let me say something. This is also an opportunity to prompt an ethical change in this company, because these are the same companies that are emptying the city centers of so many European cities. I don't know if it happens in Slovenia, but if you go to Madrid or to Naples.
Ljubljana as well, Maribor, not so much, but
it will come.
It will come, yes.
It will come, and it's destroying the authenticities of our cities. So we really need to wonder, is this what we want? In the long term, this comfort, this having easy access, is it to services, which is a reflex of consumerism, is it the only way to live? Because it's destroying, and this is why there is such a direct link between what's happening in the occupied Palestinian territory and what's happening to many of us. The same can be said, for example, of Amazon. Look at how unhappy the workers of Amazon are. And this is what I'm saying. This puts into question whether unfettered capitalism, whether capitalism without respecting any rules, capitalism where profit counts more than human rights, is what we want eventually.
And I think that's why the action from below is really important also in the case of Palestine and in the case of capitalist system as well. In Slovenia, for example, we have demanded that our university suspend their cooperation with Israeli faculties, research centers and academics. At one of the faculties in Ljubljana, students even organized an occupation of the faculty in protest. Why is it important to break cooperation with Israeli academics, and maybe more generally for the end? Why are these practices, for example, port strikes, arms boycotts, that are all actions from below, so important, and how do they contribute to the liberation of Palestine?
Two elements, and if there is a time, I will also share a consideration on the meaning of liberation. So first of all, the students around universities around the world have been the most inspiring groups I've personally seen, because they have been really the initiators of an awakening moment. I mean, I've been part of a young resistance movement toward globalization when I was younger, and there were protests. But the protests this time have been very specific, with very specific asks. I mean, the students have done their homework and come with very tailored demands toward their universities. That's amazing. and I acknowledge them. I've received so many submissions from students, investigative reports. They've been amazing. And this shows, this is one of the reasons I'm so hopeful, because the young generation is much better than us. Maybe because it's more connected, globalized, I don't know. But there is a potential there that needs to be really nurtured. So the students are right in demanding accountabilities, and the faculties and the administration should follow what they say. They need to cut ties, not with individual academics, but with academia. They cannot continue to maintain engagement with Israeli universities, because I've realized it pretty late. But it was only last year where I really studied the role of Israeli universities in maintaining the forever occupation, the dehumanization of the Palestinian, the erasure of Palestine and the Palestinian history, and then the apartheid. And now, during the genocide, not only Israeli universities have said absolutely nothing about the destruction of 11 universities. All universities in Gaza have been leveled to the ground. They've also punished both Israeli Jews and Palestinians with Israeli citizenship, standing in solidarity and asking for the end of violence against the Palestinians. So they are a critical pillar of the Israeli discriminatory system, to say the least, against the Palestinians. Therefore, like it was at the time of apartheid South Africa, apartheid Israel and all its institutions have to be sanctioned. So, yeah, the boycotts are normal, but here we are talking of divestment, because by sustaining through partnership universities, our own universities give legitimacy and very often funds to advance research that is never neutral, because even those who do not invest in the military sometimes invest in water, in agribusiness related research. There is a neutral. The water comes from the occupied Palestinian territory. There is one electricity grid. There is one water grid between the river and the sea, and it's managed by Israel, and Israel only with, we have seen how easy it is to turn off electricity and water for the Palestinians. So there is accountability to be pursued, and it's absolutely right what the students are doing. And I've also understood how, I don't know if in Slovenia it was the case, but we have seen that the fiercest response against students from certain universities came in those cases where the universities would go bankrupt if they lost the investment made through their partnerships with Israeli universities, for example, through the Horizon, the EU Horizon program that allows European funds and taxpayers' funds to go into the in the Israeli academic system. I'm sorry, this is unacceptable. And so again, I think that this report offers plenty of venues for yes, to help ensure the right of self-determination of the Palestinians. That is, it's not realizable, not possible until and unless the apartheid is dismantled, like it was for South Africa. But there is one thing: the liberation of Palestine means also the liberation of so many of us. Because think of the crackdown on freedom of expression and freedom of association in so many European countries. Look at what's happening in Italy, in Germany, in France, but look at the UK. And again, because private and corporate interest today overtake our human rights as European citizens. And this is an awakening that is to prompt action in all of us. So yes, the grassroots action is always welcome.
Francesca, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we will be hearing from you later on. Big call.
Okay. Thank you.